The Demon Core Experiment. In 1945, after World War II, scientists at Los Alamos were experimenting with a 6.2 kilograms plutonium core nicknamed the Demon Core. It was used in tests to understand criticality, the point at which a nuclear reaction becomes self-sustaining. In 1946, physicist Louis Slotin was demonstrating one such experiment using 2 half-spheres of plutonium. He used a screwdriver, yes, a literal screwdriver, to separate them manually. The tool slipped. The core flashed blue, a sign of sudden radiation. Slotin had exposed himself to a lethal burst of neutron radiation. He died 9 days later in agony. Several others nearby were also exposed, suffering long-term health effects. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. For 40 years, the U.S. Public Health Service studied the long-term effects of untreated syphilis by lying to the patients. They recruited hundreds of poor African American men and told them they were receiving free healthcare. But they were never actually treated, even after penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s. Doctors watched the disease progress, even as men went blind, insane, or died. Worse, many infected their wives and children without knowing. The experiment only ended after a whistleblower exposed it in the media. By then, more than 100 men had died, and the damage to public trust was irreversible. The Soviet Human Sleep Experiment. You may have heard the creepypasta version, but the real Soviet sleep experiment was disturbing in its own way. In the 1940s, Soviet scientists conducted a secret study on the effects of extreme sleep deprivation. They placed a group of political prisoners in sealed chambers and pumped in an experimental stimulant gas to keep them awake for 10 days straight. The goal? To create super soldiers who didn't need sleep. But what actually happened was terrifying. Reports suggest the subjects began to lose their grip on reality, hallucinating, screaming, turning violent, and even self-mutilating. Eventually, some died. The survivors were reportedly so mentally broken that they begged to be killed. Whether or not all details are accurate, this real experiment was part of the Soviet Union's high-risk human testing during the Cold War. The Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo created a fake prison in a Stanford basement and asked students to play guards and prisoners. The results were shocking. In just a few days, the guards became abusive and cruel, while the prisoners suffered mental breakdowns. The experiment, originally meant to last 2 weeks, had to be shut down after only 6 days. It proved that people placed in positions of power without accountability can become abusive fast, and it remains one of the most controversial social experiments ever conducted. Unit 731. During the World War II, the Japanese Imperial Army ran a covert unit called Unit 731 in occupied China. They conducted biological and chemical experiments on thousands of prisoners, mostly civilians. People were infected with plague, dissected alive, or exposed to frostbite and weapons testing. What went wrong? Everything. This was not just unethical, but it was pure war crimes disguised as science. At least 3,000 people died in the unit's labs. Most of the scientists were granted immunity in exchange for their data after the war. The Mgram Obedience Experiment. In 1961, a USA psychologist, Stanley Mgram, wanted to test how far people would go in obeying authority, even if it meant hurting others. Volunteers were told to deliver electric shocks to another person every time they gave a wrong answer. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. What went wrong? Despite the learner screaming in pain, most participants continued shocking them when told to do so by an authority figure in a lab coat. The experiment revealed how ordinary people can commit harmful acts under pressure, but it also caused emotional trauma to many participants who believed they had hurt someone.